And just like he chooses to cover me with grace, I have to learn about what that looks like for others in my life. You don't want them to bear the burden of unforgiveness. Hey, it's the Anything But Quiet Time podcast. We are your happy-go-lucky hosts, Rachelle and Carder.
That's a lot of pressure to live up to now.
Happy-go-lucky?
Yeah.
You don't see yourself as happy-go-lucky?
Well, not just gonna be it, and I'm like concerned that
it takes a lot to rile you up because you're pretty chill. But I have seen you riled up, and I know you don't like to get in people's way. That's a thing that gets you riled up.
Well, I guess happy-go-lucky is more not about being angry. It's about making sure I have a certain level of pep.
Oh, is that how you took it?
That's how I kind of took it.
Happy-go-lucky's like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
I'm laid back. Nothing bothers me. I'm breezy.
Well, today we're going to talk about the doctrine of hell. Can you be happy-go-lucky and talk about that subject?
What's the opposite of happy-go-lucky?
By the way, we're on YouTube. We are on Spotify and Apple, vice versa. You can text the word quiet to the number 893-893 if you'd rather watch or listen. We've gotten some good YouTube comments here lately, too.
Oh, good.
About some doctrine stuff as well. So it's really interesting to...
I'm going to be honest. I don't really look at our YouTube videos because I'm always super critical of. I was like, why did I wear that? I can't do it. Now everybody's going to go look. Oh, I see what she was talking about. It's very clear.
You're talking about the past or today?
Even just the thumbnails. If it gets stuck on me and my eyes are like...
I know that woman. She's happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went to a restaurant for the very first time, and I was...
You've never been in a restaurant before?
No. I was raised by wolves. I went to a certain restaurant...
This was a new restaurant.
For the very first time.
Okay.
Yes. And I was yelled at.
What?
All right, so I go to this place. It's a really great local place. And it was phenomenal, by the way.
Okay.
But I go in, I've never been, and I walk right into the dining room area. And it was right when they opened. So there wasn't really anybody in the dining room yet. But I realized, there's like 3 doors to this place. I had to walk across to get to where you order.
Sure.
And an employee goes, "Can I help you, sir?" And I'm like, I'm just walking in.
Yeah.
Well, you came in the exit door.
The guy said it like that?
Yeah, like you just had to make sure that,
hey,
I knew. You went in you did the wrong thing, right?
He lacked the one word dummy at the end of it. Wow.
He was not happy-go-lucky. It was like, why did you have to point that out? I said something to the effect of, so we can only go out that door? I mean, there was... what I want to say is there's a handle on the outside and there was no sign. I mean, that's what I wanted to say.
Oh, my word.
And he said, you can go out that door or that door, but that's the entrance door. And he pointed to the third door.
Okay.
And I'm like,
okay,
it's my first time here.
Yeah.
Do you do this? And what is there must be a reason. Maybe it is people go in there and save a bunch of seats and their friend gets in line or something. I don't know. I don't know what, but there's a reason, I'm sure. And they make sure to tell people. And so I'm sitting there with a friend and I'm looking at, I'm inside still. And I'm looking at that door that I came in and I'm like, looks like there's the hours, maybe the phone number. There's certainly the name to the place on the door.
It really bothered you.
I don't see the word exit on there.
When someone yells at you and you feel like a little kid caught with your hand in the cookie jar all over again, you're an adult.
And I still didn't know what even is happening, like why it happened. And so when I go back out there, I realize it's not on the door, but there was a sign, but there's like windows above the door and it said exit up.
Because everybody looks at the windows above the door.
I just look up as I walk in. It got me thinking though, we all can think that people are where we are. I'm thinking it. Everybody must know what I'm thinking.
Right.
And honestly, we talk a lot about it even at church, like want to not have too inclusive language, if you will. If somebody's visiting for the first time, you don't speak Christianese or you don't assume people know where this area is, where the children's wing is or whatever. But also just an everyday conversation with our relationships.
Because it can be off-putting. You feel like you're on the outside looking in.
Yep. And I don't even know why you're mad.
Why?
Right? With your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and they have to know I'm having a bad day because of this. Well, no, because I had also my own day, know? And so it really got me thinking we have to communicate better and I have to know exactly where the people might not, first of all, know what I'm thinking, but also might not be as frustrated as I am because they haven't experienced it a million times. Like whatever this guy has experienced that I still don't know what goes on.
What happened?
What happens there's always like a thing, like something happened here, right?
Yeah.
You wish you knew. I remember you had a story. This is just funny though. You had a story.
Yours was equally embarrassing, but I laughed, so it was funny.
No. Yours
is that what this is going to be?
No. Yours wasn't embarrassing for you. I remember when you telling me when we were like, what happened there? You went to a restaurant where you ordered chocolate milk. It was when your kids were little. You ordered chocolate milk.
Which was Chawit muck.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Chawit
and
muck.
They bring a glass of milk and the chocolate syrup.
That's right.
And you're like, oh, can you guys? And they go, I'm sorry, but after a recent lawsuit, we're not allowed to mix it anymore. What could have possibly happened? So now that was one they weren't at liberty to tell you, but still, we don't know. When we haven't all experienced the same thing, it's important to bring people into the why.
And I'm glad that they told me why. I am very curious as to what that lawsuit was all about.
Still to this day.
But at the same time, that would have been so inside. After a while, I'd be like, I gotta go. I don't want to stay here at this restaurant where they would sue you over that.
No, I got the impression somebody sued them.
Yes.
Over
I don't want
something.
If that's the case, you must have burned them so badly. You're leaving something out, I'm going to leave. This is wrong because you didn't stir it enough.
Yeah.
I didn't have the perfect milk to chocolate ratio in every sip.
Ratio was not.
I don't know. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
This is the interesting things that you pick up. But a couple of things come to mind. First of all, well, three things. One, we tend to overthink a lot of things because we banter on our radio show. We banter on the podcast. We always look for, is there like three different perspectives here? Maybe I can draw something from this experience to share and even give a biblical perspective on, or if it's just a funny story, there's that. So it's like, well, I wouldn't have thought twice if somebody had said something like that to me. But then there's also, yes, the day that I'm having, and I immediately want to get defensive. And this brings out having grace for people because there's probably a reason why they responded this way. Yeah. Which was a complete overreaction on his part. But I've been in similar circumstances where if someone calls and does the same thing over and over again, I don't even know how to explain it. Like working at Russell Stover's Chocolates when I was a teenager, I get the same questions over and over again. It's hard not to be annoyed.
The perfect example, honestly, is TSA.
Oh, yes.
It is. Yes. We know that we go in there and they can be grumps and grouches and they're yelling at us at 5 a.m. Laptops out. And you're like, the rules are different at every airport. Are you aware of this?
Sure.
Are you aware of that? I just came from a place that they didn't make me do that. But then also, they get the, our laptops. But I literally just said that.
They're trying to beat you to the punch.
Yeah.
And that's why they're yelling it. Or there's exceptions to what you're saying with they try to make it exciting and different and interesting.
Oh, some have been great. Sure.
They're great.
Yeah.
But so there's having grace for the other, but then there's also, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, when have I acted just like that?
Sure.
With my kids, with the people that matter most to me. That's generally, those are the shorter fuses is with our...
That's when I'm the meanest with the people I love.
People I love. Because you're around them the most and they should already know. How many times have I told you this very thing? Well, selective memory and hearing. And they are also tired and busy. Did they maliciously choose not to do the thing? Is the sign in view for them to see? And have I thought this through for the convenience of the other? That's another thing. If you think of it as a restaurant, it's like, this is not convenient for customers.
Sure.
You could look at all of your customers as idiots. You could choose to do that. Or you could say, maybe there's something wrong with us. Maybe I'm the common denominator with every person that walks in through the dining room.
I've wanted to say that to, big companies, you call your phone provider or the pharmacy or whatever. And it's like, do you know the experience that we get on the phone? Yeah. Because you should just call sometime and see how it sounds, because it doesn't go well. But no, I think biblically, though, you look at it as the thing that has really inspired me. You try to do it as much as you can up to a point where you really just got to confront somebody.
Yes, absolutely.
It's to one's glory to overlook an offense. That's the turn the other cheek thing. Jesus isn't saying on the turn the other cheek, take on abuse. He is saying when you know it's just because they're having a bad day, especially when it's your spouse or whatever,
let it go.
You just move on from it.
Let it go.
Don't keep the record of wrongs and move on as best as you can. And often it's, I think I wouldn't be able to if I was around them more or longer, but TSA, probably never gonna see him again. If I do, I'm not gonna remember exactly who it was. Driving, never gonna see him again.
That's right.
Just as much as they were wrong, and as much as if we actually got in a wreck, I would probably tell them, what in God's green earth were you doing? But if we skated by, nobody got hurt, I'm mad still, I'm just going to keep going on the road.
And make sure that you're not wearing a badge, because if you're not the one who's supposed to carry out the law, then justice doesn't come from your hand. So like when you're driving on the road and somebody does something and you're not okay with it, and you're in no position to be carrying out some authority.
Unless you're Batman.
Or
a citizen's arrest.
Actually, you asked me the other day a really interesting question. You said, so was Batman, is he unbiblical?
Because
he's a vigilante.
What point did you bring up? You had said...
I can't remember. I can't even remember the chocolate milk story.
It was something to the effect of obey the laws of the land and let the authorities... Oh, I know what it was. It was eye for an eye.
Oh, yes.
That's meant for courts and judges, not us to enact justice on our own.
Which is a whole thing about the heart of the issue. I was thinking about that this morning, that God looks at the heart. He makes that point over and over again. He puts rules out there to give us solid boundaries. Those are for the people generally. I think the rules were put out there because people were scared to have a relationship with him, and they were scared to know him closely, like Moses was in that kind of relationship.
They were,
They were friends.
Yeah.
That's what I think the New Testament refers to Moses as a friend, as well as Abraham, or maybe I got that mixed up. But the point is that they were on speaking terms, and he wanted that relationship with his people. And they said, "No, Moses, you go, you be the intercessor, you go between us." So, if you're not going to the source, there has to be, let me see, what was that rule again? Oh, that's right. Here's that law.
Yeah, true.
The heart of it, of having rules in the first place, is this is your best life. All right. Okay. So we're going to flesh out these 10 commandments a little bit more with you guys. When I tell you not to say things against your neighbor that are false, I was hoping that you understood.
The general idea being, yes.
I can't ever imagine God saying, what was I thinking? No, he knows what we were thinking, so he doesn't need to.
It's like he hands out the 10 commandments, and then he tells the angel, okay, get to writing the other 603.
Yeah.
Right. He's like,
there's going to be a few more. So they're going to need some follow-up with the, hey, eye for an eye. This is not because God was all about people plucking eyeballs out. It's like, first of all, there was a situation with the context of the times, the culture of the times. There's a lot of cutthroat situations going on in that biblical era.
It was merciful, right? The punishment should fit the crime. It's really what it was. Yeah.
It was. In fact, I'm actually reading a book right now that kind of takes it to, what was it? I feel really bad that I don't know. Vikings, the land of the Vikings.
The Vikings, okay, yes.
Do you ever go back in history? Because some of the earliest parts of history in this particular book, it actually references. We always think of the start of civilization, in the Eastern type of hemisphere, in the Middle East area. And they have records that go way back, like with Stonehenge and things like that. What happened? Were they just waiting around for their civilization to start when this civilization was birthing them? That doesn't make any sense. But we could go on another tangent with that. My point is that these guys, when they describe the way they were living, and it was just second nature to them, would have been the grossest. Like, you guys are, you're prudish in your manners. This is completely fine what we're doing and how we're cleaning ourselves. And you're like, no.
That's grotesque.
I can't believe you guys even live to make another generation of people. This is completely crazy. But it was a very raw, debased situation. And the chosen people of God were meant to be lifted up. You are my chosen people, and these laws are in place. This is going to make you better people. If you must have a disagreement, if you see that somebody's done a thing, then all right, it would be lawful, it would be just that if they took an eye, then you take an eye.
Yeah.
And of course.
Yeah. And you see, honestly, the way that God, because you see it when they asked Jesus about marriage and if about divorce, and he says that was put in there for these exceptions of sexual immorality or whatever, but it wasn't God's plan.
Right. That's not the heart of God.
And so it was this, if you must, that's the kind of thing it made me think of.
Yeah.
I know you have something to get to. I want to share a quick.
This has been fun. I knew it would be.
Well, I want to share a quick story you made me think of. I don't even know if I've ever told you this, because you said don't enact justice on your own unless it needs to be a citizen's arrest. And my dad worked for a grocery store.
And justice being different than vengeance.
Sure. I don't know what this category this is going to be, but my dad worked for a grocery store and they caught a shoplifter and they caught him red-handed.
Okay.
And they called the police. And this happened a handful of times in my dad's tenure at the grocery store. But only one happened like this. And I don't know if it's like a technical thing that only this officer knew, or if this officer was off his rocker or what. But there's an element of the if there's no proof necessarily for the officer, some sort of citizen's arrest element has to come out for the officer then to take them in. And they're sitting there in the office. The officer comes in, and what happened? Well, caught them shoplifting. There's the items they had in there. They must not have video probably of it, but here's the items, and we saw them do it. Here's 2 eyewitnesses, employees, and all that. Okay. You want to place them under citizen's arrest? What? You need to place them under citizen's arrest for me to go on from here. Okay. Yes.
You've been placed under citizen's arrest.
He literally goes, you're going to have to say it. Okay. Do it. No, you're going to have to point at them and go, citizen's arrest. And he goes, okay, yes. No, I need you to actually point at the shoplifter and say citizen's arrest. And my dad goes, citizen's arrest. Okay, I'll take it from here. And to this day, my dad doesn't quite understand.
It's okay.
What even happened?
I think the same people who were behind the whole chocolate milk fiasco. Somehow.
Here's the element of the law that is the most confusing. Yes.
Actually, I said something that I don't even know. I would have to rethink about it. I would like to look up, and maybe that'll be next time, vengeance versus justice, because vengeance seems more like it's knee-jerk reaction and response, and like they killed so-and-so, so I'm going to kill them. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, but we also know that he is just. So if he is just, then when he takes vengeance, it's holy. If
I would think so. Yeah.
Then look, I've said this before, like Jesus never sinned in his anger. We know that he was free of sin. It doesn't mean that he wasn't tempted to do the thing.
Right.
But when he was throwing over those temple tables, people would be like, well, I got holy righteous anger or something. I'm like, I'm very careful with that.
Yeah, I've heard it put very well that that was Jesus's house.
Yeah.
And if you want to destroy things on your own property, it's yours.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Absolutely.
And so there's no, hey, I'm going to take vengeance and anger out on this business or this church. Well, that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
That's not yours.
It's a bit of a citizen's arrest because it's his house.
Yep, that's right.
And you're doing things and you're stealing in God's house.
Yeah.
All right. So would you play this audio clip? By the way, this is very late for Valentine's, but I thought of this the other day. My family and I were rewatching from a long time ago, written and of course animated by Charles Schultz, the Snoopy Valentine special.
Charlie Brown, we've been feeling awfully guilty about not giving you a Valentine this year. Here, I've erased my name from this one. I'd like you to have it.
Hold on there. What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? Where were you yesterday when everyone else was giving out Valentines? Is kindness and thoughtfulness something you can make retroactive? Don't you think he has any feelings? You and your friends are the most thoughtless bunch I've ever known. You don't care anything about Charlie Brown. You just hate to feel guilty. And now you have the nerve to come around one day later and offer him a used Valentine just to ease your conscience. Well, let me tell you something. Charlie Brown doesn't need your... Don't listen to him. I'll take it.
Okay, so you heard three voices there. It's a little girl. She came in with Lucy. Nobody likes Lucy, by the way. She's the one that never lets Charlie hit the football.
No.
Okay. I have a problem. I bought my son a hoodie with the characters on it the other day, and there's Lucy. I'm like, why does she have to be on?
Did you almost take vengeance?
But I almost did.
Yeah.
I almost cut her out of the hoodie. So, but they're all there on Valentine's Day. This kid brings, this is so sad. Charlie Brown brings a briefcase to school, so he'll have a place for all the Valentines because he's worried that he's not going to be able to, he's going to lose them because he's holding on to them. He didn't get one Valentine. We actually received an email from a listener to our radio show who shared in 5th grade, my worst Valentine's Day ever. Everybody got a Valentine, and there was not one in my cubby. Now, I have parents of kids. I'm thinking back to my own grade school years and thinking about how rough that would be for that to happen to my child even. Here's Charlie Brown with no Valentines. The following day, he's even like searching his mailbox. Maybe I missed it. I mean, it's pathetic is what it is.
Yeah.
And Schroeder, who had been the one, he's the guy who plays the piano. He had been the one to pass out all the Valentines at this party. He knows Charlie didn't get any Valentines. And he's standing there out next to Charlie Brown in the empty mailbox. And those girls come along. We feel really guilty because we didn't give you a Valentine. And at first I'm listening to this and I'm like, well, I'm glad that they're starting to see some light here.
Sure. Yeah.
And I felt bad. So I took a Valentine that I received and I took my name out of it. I'd like you to have it. This tells me how much I have been conditioned to be, I don't know, what's the word? I've given people the benefit of the doubt a lot in my life. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with it until you take it to a place of like releasing people from any sort of debt.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm talking about maybe the nature of sin, okay? So we give people lots of excuses. Well, even what we were talking about earlier. But is it to give grace or is it to just justify the wrongness of the action? Mm-hmm. If that makes sense?
Yeah, and then the question would be why? And is it because you don't want confrontation?
Right.
Is it because, what is the why there?
Is there an opportunity for Charlie Brown to speak up for himself and say, first of all, the gesture is very kind. I thank you for that. Maybe the reason you're feeling guilty is you're supposed to be kind to everybody right off the bat. It's Schroeder who took my shoulders and shook me a little bit when I was watching this little cartoon. And I don't want to hammer people with you should have been kind in the first place. Because we all have bad days and we all screw up. And it tells us in Romans, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. There's no perfect person. We're all going to mess each other up and let each other down. Yeah. This is a repeat offense with Charlie Brown. If you know anything about him, he gets a rock in his bag of treats at every house they go to and press the doorbell. Uh-huh. I got a rock. Everybody else gets candy.
And I got a rock.
Charlie Brown is the kid at Christmas time who all of the specials, they show how kind of sad he is and all the rest of the kids pick on him and stuff. And Schroeder stands up and says, do you think that kindness is retroactive? So I wanted to look up this word and give the exact definition just so that we can kind of grab at this word and really give it, gosh, I'm looking at all these ridiculous photos. I took a bunch of screenshots of things that don't matter. Here we go. Extending in scope or effect to a prior time or to conditions that existed or originated in the past.
Okay.
So I think there's room for recognizing that you did something wrong, but you're still not even doing it for the right reasons, it seems. We felt guilty. That's why we're doing it. Why did you feel guilty? Maybe exploring that. But also, it's this is a sin thing. We're having fun because it's an animated cartoon.
Yeah, yeah.
You sinned against this other human being by giving something to everybody else in the class and not being mindful. And who would waste a Valentine on Charlie Brown is what Lucy said.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even hey, I just forgot.
Right.
They purposely chose not to give this kid a Valentine.
So I guess, and maybe you're getting there, what do you do? Because I've been in this situation before, right? If you do feel guilty and you know you messed up,
Yes.
and then they technically did the right thing by getting him a Valentine, then how do you navigate? Well, yeah, sure, it's maybe more driven because of my guilt, but my action was actually
Right.
And so what is the right thing?
I don't know that their action was, because I was thinking about that too. It's like, well, is Schroeder being overbearing? I think, yes, he is a little bit. When he says, you guys are so thoughtless. Do you think this is retroactive? It's been committed. So let me ask you, sin, yes, it's going to have and bear different weight in our judicial system here on this planet. But sin is, by any stretch, whether it's small in your eyes or large in your eyes, keeps us from God.
Yeah.
So we need to repent of it. If you murdered somebody's child and you go to them the next day and you say, I've been feeling guilty.
Right.
I murdered your child.
Yeah.
And I thought, here, I found this other kid on the street. Why don't you just take this child? Well, whose child? Like, that's a whole, I don't know. It's maybe not the best analogy, but the point being, there's still wounding that has taken place there. Healing needs to, like, I need to make sure that if I have wronged somebody, how would I want to be treated? Does that little girl rubbing out that name and then giving it to him a used Valentine?
Yeah, okay, well, that's some more context. That's true. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this is used. Is this making it better? Now, if I explain, I mean, it just depends. Obviously, there could be any number of ways you could argue against or for this whole thing. But let's just say, for fun, that this little girl found this Valentine and she erased that name, and she did so. They had no more money to buy new ones. This was the best she had. And she comes to him thoughtfully and apologizes. I was guilty. I felt guilty about it. I should never have not singled you out and not given you one. That was wrong. And I wish I could get you a new one. I wish I could go back and fix it.
Yeah. And maybe sometimes it's just an apology then, right?
Yeah.
Instead of forcing it like that, or if you could get a new one. I think about some of those viral videos.
How would you like to be treated, I guess, is the main thing.
I say think about some of those viral videos where nobody shows up to the kid's birthday party.
Yeah.
And then the town throws them a birthday party. Well, then you have people that were probably invited and didn't go. Mm-hmm. And let's just say it's more malicious. I mean, a lot of times they've just been out of town, the people that could have gone or whatever. But there's probably some people that could have gone and said, I'm not going to that loser's birthday. Mm. And then all of a sudden it's cool because the town is now throwing the birthday, and Major League Baseball players come in and musicians come in and all of that stuff. Well, then do you not go? Or do you go knowing that this was the right thing to do and I want to do the right thing now? But now it just looks like you're...
What's beautiful, and I think the challenge for maybe Schultz on this was, and Schultz was a believer. He's now with the Lord, but Charles Schultz and Snoopy and Peanuts, and love those cartoons. I think he wants us to rethink. I think he wants us to think kindness first.
Sure.
And so regardless of what people think, Jesus sees my action and my inaction. And even if nobody else buys that my heart is in the right place by attending that birthday party or by giving that Valentine, I knew that I was to walk out in obedience going to that party because it was the right thing to do. Yeah. And I think that's where we have to release it, because we get into this thing about what will they say. If there's any way to help repair the damage done with that relationship and say, look, I didn't come to your birthday. I want to talk about that with you. Maybe not in that moment, because if you're like, I just thought you were a big dork and I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
That's first of all, that's not the right thing to say.
Right. Well, yeah.
It's like, I should have made you a priority, and I was wrong, and I'm really sorry.
Well, and I've learned the timing.
And I'm going to try to do better. The
timing is so good because I've learned if Kelsey asked me to do something, then I didn't do it, I'm not going to then call her in the midst of meetings. This is my wife. Call her in the midst of meetings during the day and apologize then. All of a sudden, now the mental load it's like, I'm just trying to get the guilt off of my shoulders so that I can confess and be done with it. When it's like, thanks, now I have to take this on mentally. Like, it's like, now I'm just adding a burden. But no, I think you're right. I see that enacted in some of those, usually it's movies, but where the parent wasn't a good parent, wasn't around. The kid grows up, hates them. And then you see in some of those depictions of movies and real life, the parent really is trying.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that they can get through to that kid because of past mistakes. And at that point, it really is on the kid to let go.
It's called, you have to understand grace.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Jesus is the key in all of this.
Yeah.
Because it tells us in Psalms that when our sin is as far as the east is from the west, I mean, that's the comparison that's made by the psalmist to him. And we think about the atrocities that we've committed. When we commit them against one another, we commit them against Jesus. And it's grieving to him. He doesn't want that to happen. He didn't want the rule in the first place for an eye for an eye. He wanted communion with his creation.
Yeah.
And we put ourselves at the center of attention when it should have been God. And then we were, all right, now you're no longer in the garden. This is now a broken situation. So if sin is going to be a factor, then I need to ask for forgiveness. And just like he chooses to cover me with grace, I have to learn about what that looks like for others in my life and pray that maybe that they'll have grace, even if it's not, because that could be a selfish prayer. It's like, please let them have grace for me. It's not that you can't pray that, but you don't want them to bear the burden of unforgiveness.
You're right.
Because that's ugly too.
Yeah. No, that's true.
For their own good.
This is, and I'll just say, I mean, we're probably about out of time, but I'll just say this. I shared this when N.T. Wright, I went to a lecture of his last year. He's a scholar, he's brilliant. And we went over the book of Ephesians. And it was more in big groups of people, but I think this applies individually too. The two themes in the book of Ephesians are holiness and unity. And it really is the Lord's will that we have both. And yet they're easy to get individually. It's easy to have unity when you throw holiness out the window. And that's kind of what we see in culture now, right? Everybody, it's fine, whatever you do. Like, we just tell each other that good job and whatever you believe is fine. Well, but if you care too much about holiness and not unity, then you can just continually divide from people. You don't agree with me on that or that or that. See you later.
Yeah.
You isolate yourself, or you and your little group of friends that have it all figured out. And it really is that attempt to have both. It
is. I saw a quote the other day on a picture, and sometimes when you're in a store and you're like, oh, this is framed art, it must be an amazing quote. At first I looked at the first line and I was like, I don't know that I agree with any of that. But then I thought about it a little bit more. I went back and I literally turned around in the store and went back and I read it. And it said something along the lines of, sometimes being right is not what's most important. And I thought, well, that's not necessarily true, because if you're believing a lie, then that's stupid. But what it's saying is, sometimes the most right thing you can be is a listening body, a person that just is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could be so right that you're wrong, is a quote that my grandfather shared years ago with my dad, and dad with me. And it's so true. I mean, like, yeah, the holiness thing factoring in, and over the unity thing. Wait a second. We even talked about on our radio show, how do you confront somebody lovingly, or just confront somebody at all in a way that you think is right? And a gentleman shared, he said, I'm actually a very blunt human being, but after 18 years of marriage with my wife, she has tempered it. And we found this incredible balance of being gracious, but also truthful.
Yeah, direct. Yeah.
And Ephesians also talks about truth and love. And I feel like we always kind of get back to that Ephesians 4 verse.
Yeah. Well, it's just true, truth, right? I think the sentiment that I've heard is because so much is non-essential. If it's essential, I better be more open-handed about it. I better be, if they're denying Jesus, or all that. But so much is non-essential within Christianity, and obviously even politics and all of that. It's just like, we can still have a relationship. But like somebody put it, if you hear some bad theology at a funeral, like we all hear, heaven gained another angel, right? Or they're there because they were a good person or whatever. If I'm approached about it, absolutely share truth. I'm not going to stand up at a funeral and go, excuse me, they're actually not an angel, because we are not angels.
That's right.
I'm going to have a little more couth than that, hopefully, right?
Yeah, we've got to, because because that might be I don't know. God, I think, will give us a foot in the door when we share our compassion. We're to lead, I think, with love in order for truth to be accepted, to be embraced.
Yeah,
that's your foot in the door. So, and also with the whole giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think with my own actions, I beat myself up pretty good. If I know that I have sinned against a brother or a sister in the Lord, if I have sinned against anybody, I'm hit with it pretty good in my own heart and in my mind. When other people might be here's your erased Valentine and the afterthought, I hold them to a different standard for some reason. And I think that's what's challenged me in that little clip. It's like, wait a second. So on behalf of not just myself, but my children, on behalf of loved ones, people that I know, if somebody is doing second best and I'm hearing about it, like so-and-so, they saw I didn't have a Valentine, so they erased and gave it to me. Oh, that was nice. Wait a second. Mm-hmm. Was that kindness or was that guilt?
Sure.
Kindness is to think of them first, to have a Valentine ready to go first. That's the kind of person I want to be. That's the kind of person I hope that that every person wants to aspire to become. And I think that was the whole point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. That's good. He should do cartoons and life lessons and comics.
He's with Jesus now. He's an angel.
Whoa. Now right here, I'll say bad theology.
Charles Schulz is like, nah.
No, and I'm having a great time.